Hello everybody, I hope that you're well. In October 2020, I decided to move to Mexico, mainly for a change of scenery, better weather, continue learning my Spanish, and just to live in a country which was cheaper than the one that I'm currently living in. I didn't have much of a plan, to be honest. I knew it wasn't going to be like one of my typical backpacking trips because I didn't want to move around too much and I didn't want to stay in hostel dorm rooms, mainly due to the ongoing pandemic, and that was a personal choice. The hostels were actually up and running as usual in Mexico at the time, and I ended up being in Mexico for just under 6 months. I spent half my time in Tulum and the other half of my time in Puerto Escondido in Oaxaca. Both of these spots are very popular destinations for travelers. Both of them are very different. So today I'm going to be comparing these two destinations and my thoughts on these two destinations as a digital nomad in Mexico. So let's start with a bit of geography to help you get your bearings of where these places actually are in Mexico. Tulum is on the east coast of Mexico in the state of Quintana Roo with a Caribbean coast. I believe they are building a commercial airport, but at the moment most international travelers will fly into Cancun, then you drive along the coast for 2 hours passing through Playa del Carmen until you reach Tulum. It's a tropical climate in Tulum. You are literally surrounded by rainforest, and so they get a lot of rain, particularly when I was there in October and November, so that was arguably bad timing. It was very humid and always felt damp. Puerto Escondido is in the state of Oaxaca on the west coast of Mexico with a Pacific coastline. It's pretty isolated as a town in general, so if you're traveling across land, it may well be on a long overnight bus, but it does have an international airport which makes it really accessible. You can fly direct from Mexico City, which takes about an hour, and the flights are relatively cheap. Puerto Escondido has more of a desert climate. It's very dry and they don't get much rain at all. Beautiful blue skies every day. Tulum has some of the most epic and unique nature in the world. The beach is world class with white, fine, powdery sand and crystal clear light blue waters. I guess that's what you would expect from the Caribbean. And then there is a lot of rainforest, which is gorgeous, but downside of that is the number of bugs. I will never forget the time my face looked like this from cream because of all the mozzie bites I had on my face. Tulum is also surrounded by hundreds of incredible cenotes, which are like big natural water holes, and they are so cool. Each one is unique and different. Some have entire underground cave systems. You can swim in them, sometimes scuba dive and free dive as well. Puerto Escondido also has beautiful beaches. It has a collection of 7 unique beaches actually. The sand is more yellow and thicker grains though. Some of the beaches you can swim and snorkel and the water is clear. Some of the beaches have small waves where you can surf as a beginner, and some of the beaches have big waves where you can surf as a professional. So Puerto Escondido has a larger variety of beaches, but none of them are quite as elite paradise as Tulum Beach. And both towns have so many things to do. In Tulum you have the beach, they even have a beach gym, cenotes, diving, many holistic activities like meditation, yoga, Pilates, specialty classes. If you like that kind of thing, Tulum could be your absolute haven. In Puerto Escondido you also have all the different beaches. Surfing is a big thing, snorkeling, whale watching, bioluminescence plankton, horse riding, hot springs, waterfalls. You can also do yoga and such, but it's not such a big deal there. The restaurants in Tulum are undeniably fantastic, especially some of the ones you can find on the beach road. World class, some of them, and the architecture is insane. There is a big reason why Tulum is such a big hotspot for Instagram girls, because all the details are so boho and so beautiful. The food is fantastic as well. They have a lot of Mexican options as well as a lot of international options. However, the quality of the restaurants is very much reflected in the price, and I'll talk more about that in a second. Puerto Escondido also has fantastic restaurants and cafe selections all over the town, but you do have particularly nice ones in the La Punta area. Mexican food, international food, you're not short of great options, and the prices are affordable, like super affordable. Technically what it should be in Mexico. So let's talk more about the prices because, well, this is the biggest difference that you'll find between these two towns. I was not prepared for how expensive Tulum would be. It's US prices, but like expensive US prices. The cocktails typically are £10, so $15. Main meals on the beach would be £15 to £20, so $20 to $25. The activities are quite extortionate. You can expect to pay like $50 for a half-day tour of something or other. And don't even get me started on things like entries to party nights at the beach clubs. For some nights it would be hundreds of dollars for an entry, with no drinks included. hundreds of dollars. Granted, in the main town of Tulum, away from the beach, the prices were a bit more reasonable, but still not cheap or normal in Mexico by any means. You still would be paying £7 or $10 for a main meal there. And some of you might be thinking, oh, well, that's pretty reasonable. The prices in Oaxaca are literally half of that. It's an expensive meal in Oaxaca if you're paying over a $5 or over $6. It would be an expensive activity in Oaxaca if you're paying more than $20, but that's rarely the case, and that would be a whole day activity. And a cocktail costs around £3 or $5. And let's talk about the cost of accommodation as well. Okay, so I stayed in two similar places at some point in both Tulum and Puerto Escondido. In Tulum, I had this hotel room. It was simple, but it was clean. I had an ensuite. They cleaned the rooms every day, and there was a pool. This place cost me $35 per night, so £24. It was in La Valletta, which is a nice neighborhood, but nowhere near any beaches or action. In Puerto Escondido, I had this hotel room. It was simple, but it was clean. I had an ensuite, and they cleaned the rooms every day, and there was a pool. This place cost me $22 a night, or £16. And I was right on the beach, right in the middle of Zicatela, near all the shops and restaurants. In Mexico in general, I set myself the budget of £1,500 for the month, which is £50 per day, and that was to account for all of my expenses, my accommodation, my travel, my food, my activities, everything. I was exceeding this most days in Tulum. I was way over budget. As soon as I went out for some nice food, a couple of drinks, maybe I wanted to do a small activity, bye-bye budget. In Puerto Escondido, on the other hand, I rarely ever went over my budget. So most days I would go out for food twice a day and do an activity, and I would still be under budget. So actually, in my entire time in Mexico with $1,500 as my monthly budget, I was actually pretty on track because the two towns ended up balancing themselves out. Now, these prices are not a coincidence, and they're going to make a lot more sense when I tell you about the type of tourists that you can expect to find in each town. So Tulum's tourists, at a guess, is 95% American. The majority of them are coming from somewhere on the East Coast because it's such a short flight for them. I believe it's kind of notorious that East Coast Americans tend to travel to Cancun and that side of Mexico, and West Coast Americans tend to travel to Cabo and that side of Mexico, just for convenience. But anyway, back to Tulum. It's flooded with American people, specifically Americans on holiday, on vacation. They're there for a good time, not a long time, and they have a lot of money to spend. And I believe that this is why Tulum has become so expensive, because there are so many people that arrive ready and willing to splash their cash, and the Tuluminati have capitalized on that. There are some tourists who spend an extended period of time out there though, normally the ones building their online businesses out there, usually consisting of being a life coach or a business coach or any other sort of coach that doesn't involve sport, or they've just finished 6 weeks becoming Gandhi in India and they are yoga instructors. Another thing I feel like I should mention is it's a very posy crowd for the most part. People literally queue outside certain hotels and restaurants in order to get an Instagram picture. Like, they'll be queuing for like up to an hour, and God forbid you don't have banging body confidence, because on the beach you will find the most beautiful, perfectly chiseled people in teeny tiny bikinis. These people either have blessed genetics, worked their asses off at the gym, or have paid a lot of money to look the way they do. So you have been forewarned. Puerto Escondido is totally different. It's a backpackers town. The tourists are much more diverse in nationality. There still are a fair few Americans, definitely more than the number of Americans you would expect to see in hostels outside of North America, which are almost non-existent. You'll find tourists from most parts of the world hanging around in Puerto Escondido. It's not a pretentious vibe at all, in my opinion. It's a surfy vibe. Everyone is chilled out. A lot of people don't even wear shoes. And what I also found is that the tourists in Puerto Escondido did tend to stay for quite a long time. Whether that was their initial intention or not is another story. But many tourists choose to stay at least a few weeks. And from the people I spoke to, there's quite a variety of online jobs that people do there. People in social media marketing, consulting, students, content creators. I didn't come across any life coaches though in Puerto Escondido. Let's talk more about working online, because most tourists who are staying in Mexico for an extended period of time are working online. But here's the thing, the Wi-Fi in both Tulum and Puerto Escondido is shit. Like, really not great. It's so hit and miss. There was only one place in Puerto Escondido which I would go every day where I could kind of rely on the Wi-Fi. Even then, it still didn't work every day, but for the most part it did. One place, and I actually ended up moving to a hotel that was within 1 minute's walking distance from that place for my own convenience, and that's Amarisa Cafe, by the way. Tulum, I think, was marginally better in terms of there being a couple more places which might have had passable Wi-Fi, but honestly, I don't recommend either of these towns if you are someone who absolutely relies on good Wi-Fi every day to get work done. It's just not possible. As a YouTuber, I'm somewhat okay because I don't need internet at all when I'm editing, but then every few days when I want to upload, I do need good Wi-Fi. So I just about managed to make it work in these towns, but the Wi-Fi sitch is not convenient at all. Which town is safer? Both towns are perfectly safe in the daytime. Obviously, do be aware of your belongings at all times though. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat the safety at night though. I can only really speak from the events that happened while I was there, but when I was in Tulum, I would say that there was a shooting at least once a week. This was never aimed at tourists. It was never a tourist that got murdered. It was always local gangs and drugs related, but they did always take place in popular nightlife spots outside popular clubs on main streets. It was very prevalent. It wasn't behind closed doors. There is also just a lot of drug dealers everywhere who will always ask you if you want to buy anything. All I'm going to say is don't ever leave your drink unattended. Don't walk down dark alleyways by yourself at night. Always get a taxi home. And don't get so drunk that you can't look after yourself. It's when you don't follow these kind of, what I think is kind of basic travel common sense things, that's when you end up in some questionable situations. And I would give you the same advice in Puerto Escondido as well. I didn't hear of any shootings while I was there, but crime still does happen, of course, muggings, etc. You never really hear it happening in the daytime, but do be particularly careful at night. So in conclusion, what is my opinion of Tulum versus Puerto Escondido? Which one do I prefer? I feel like, unsurprisingly, I preferred Puerto Escondido by a long shot. Perhaps that's because I'm a backpacker, which Puerto caters for a lot better. You get so much more for your money. You're spending less and you're doing more, so your quality of life is better. I think it's easier to make friends in Puerto. Perhaps that's because a lot of the people there are staying for a longer period of time. The people are so chilled. No one's trying to be posy. The weather is consistently gorgeous every single day. There's so many activities to do, an abundance of restaurants and cafes to choose from as well. I love the variety of beaches and the fact that no one tries to charge you to park at them, because that's right. David and I once pulled up to the public beach in Tulum in a car looking to park, and they tried to charge us 700 pesos to park for the afternoon. That's 25 quid. The Tuluminati will try and charge you for anything and everything at extortionate prices. And above being expensive, it's just a bit stressful. You don't have that in Puerto. You can park anywhere, you can always find a space, and no one's gonna charge you anything. Saying that though, Tulum is undeniably beautiful. The beach is world class. The cenotes and diving are so incredibly cool. Some of the restaurants and beach clubs are just insane with incredible food and drink. It's worth visiting for sure, but I don't think that it's a particularly sustainable place to live. I hope you really enjoyed this video and it's given you a bit more insight into Tulum and Puerto Escondido, so it can help you make your decision of where you might want to travel next. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!